Most glute stretches won't improve your hip mobility for real-world movements like squatting deep or lifting your knees up high to run fast. Watch this video for a routine based on our systematic approach that will give you lasting gains in your hip mobility. Hey, it's Coach E from Precision Movement, and welcome to another video where I'm going to help you to move freely and without pain. And today we're going to focus on the glutes and stretching the glutes and getting this range of motion up here. This range of motion is called hip flexion, when you bring your knee up to your chest. And to achieve greater hip flexion, people think, oh, the glutes are limiting that because the glutes are lengthened when you get into this range of motion. So we should stretch the glutes. Well, this is something that I'm going to comment on really briefly, and it's around the topic of flexibility versus mobility. Flexibility is, I define it very simply as your ability to be bent. So something or somebody else is bending you, a partner, an opponent, or gravity. Mobility, on the other hand, is your ability to bend. So your ability to get into a range of motion or a position or a posture. And those are two distinct concepts, and I think it's very important. Now, where do these come from? Well, the old model and the standard stretches that you'll get and you'll see for everything are based on passive, isolated, and a muscle-centric look at this topic of range of motion. Whereas the approach that we take is based on an active, integrated, and neuromuscular perspective on range of motion. The bottom line is, if we're moving around in the world and we're playing sports and we're playing with our kids, getting up and down from the ground, mobility is what we need, not flexibility. So how do we get greater mobility? Our approach, and it's not the only approach, there are many different ways to improve your mobility for real world or athletic tasks, but our approach is based around creating a foundation for movement based on 4 pillars: tissue quality, activation, alignment, and active range of motion. So instead of talking about it more, I'm going to walk you through 3 exercises that will improve your hip flexion range of motion, not necessarily just stretching your glutes. And that's going to translate to the tasks that you want to do in your everyday life, the gym, and sport. The first exercise I'm going to walk you through is the 4-point hip capsule mobilization. And this addresses the tissue quality part of the formula. For this technique, you can use a strength band, but if you don't have one, you can just do the exercise without. You're going to set up in a 4-point position and with the band wrapped around your thigh and pulling backwards, maintaining an anterior pelvic tilt and your natural lumbar curve. You're going to drive your hip back until you feel some tightness in the posterior hip. So it might be the glute, but it might be deeper than the glute, which is the hip joint capsule. From here, once you've identified some tightness, you can do some circles slowly in one direction, 5 circles in one direction, and then 5 circles in the other direction. Make sure you're breathing naturally throughout. From there, you can explore and find different areas of the hip that might be tight and restricted by rotating your hip, so moving your ankle in, moving your ankle out, and you can find different areas to mobilize. And this will ensure that the posterior joint hip capsule, which often gets tight and restricted from all the sitting that we do, this will ensure that it gets mobilized. If the capsule is tight, it's going to push that head of the femur, that's the leg bone, the head of the femur, forward anteriorly in the hip joint. And the problem with that is when you go to squat and when you go to flex your hip, you can run into impingement issues in the hip. Femoroacetabular impingement is the name given to that condition. So it's really important to ensure that the hip joint capsule is mobilized so we can do the movements that we want without pinching any of the structures in the hip. The perfect follow-up exercise to mobilizing your posterior joint capsule is our hip flexion ERE, which stands for end range expansion. Now this exercise strengthens the muscles that get you into this hip flexed range of motion, which are the hip flexors like the psoas, and out of this range of motion, which are the glutes. For this technique, you'll need a high box or a table, something sturdy that you can put your foot up onto. I'm using the ledge here at the studio. From here, you want to maintain good posture and a strong, stable support leg. Put your foot up on the ledge or the box or the table, and then from there, lift the foot off the ground and keep trying to lift the foot off the ground and activate those hip flexors. So you're trying to get a strong contraction in the hip flexors. Maintain good posture, breathe naturally, and then slowly lower back to the table, maintaining your posture, and then drive your foot into the table or the ledge using your glutes. So activate those glutes and try to ramp up that activation level so it's strong and intense. As you can see, I'm working hard here. To finish this off, you do another activation of the hip flexors by lifting the foot off the surface. You're trying to get deeper into that range of motion the whole time. You're breathing naturally, and then you lower down to the floor under control. The activations in this exercise you're going to hold for 10 to 15 seconds each. And again, intensity is the key. So if you have any pain or anything, only go up to a level where you don't feel pain. But if you're pain-free, then work it. That's how you're going to build strength. And that's how you're going to teach your brain that you control this range of motion. You can bring yourself in there, you can stabilize there, and that's how you get increases in hip mobility that last. We like to do 3 to 5 cycles, holding each activation for 10 to 15 seconds, but if you want, you can definitely do more. The third and final exercise I'm going to walk you through today to improve your hip flexion, range of motion, and give you improvements that last is the reverse lunge from a step. And personally, I love the lunge movement pattern and doing reverse lunges to build strength. And it's something that I do a lot more than back squats or front squats or the squat movement pattern. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, it's easy to load it up without putting your low back at risk, especially when you've got a heavy load on your back doing a back squat and you're aiming for a deep range of motion. If you don't have that good range of motion and good stability and control there, you can go into a flexed lumbar spine, a little bit of posterior pelvic tilt, aka butt wink, and that can put your low back at risk. So for somebody who's got a history of low back issues from the surgery I had when I was 14, and who's somebody who's getting a little bit older and just wants to stay healthy and stay strong and athletic, but I don't have to push the edges and really push the envelope of performance, reverse lunges for me are a great choice. I think they'd be good for you too. For the reverse lunge from a step, you just get up, something high, it could be stairs or it could be a plyo box or something. And then you're just gonna alternate and go, keeping good posture, front foot stays flat, stepping back, getting into an extended hip position at the bottom, try and kiss your knee to the ground, and you come up under control using mostly your front foot. You switch, you step back, extend the back hip, keep good posture. Weight is up front, mostly on the front foot, and that's what's bringing you up. Now, when you're doing this, you definitely want your front knee to go over your toe, that way, as long as the foot stays flat. This old concept of the knee can't go in front of the toe, that's a myth. Do not listen to that. You need to be able to do this in everyday life. Every time you go up and down stairs, your knee goes in front of your toe. So why not train it in the gym and build that strength and build that range of motion that we use all the time. Another variation that you can try if you're into strength challenges and you like to lift heavy or you like to really push yourself is the single leg squat with the knee back, trying to kiss the knee to the ground. So for this one, you're just on the ground, body weight only. Your arms can go forward, counterbalance. Go nice and slow, the foot stays flat. Kiss that knee to the ground, and then come up under control. Now, I warned you, this is tough to be able to do it slow and under control like that. So if you don't have the strength yet, don't worry about it. Just do the reverse lunge from the step and build up your strength with that exercise. You can use dumbbells, you can use barbells, and load it up and get stronger to the point where you might be able to pull off those single leg versions. Do 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 10 reps per side, and that will integrate the range of motion gains you made using the previous 2 exercises in this hip flexion range into a fundamental movement pattern, teaching your brain that this is a range that you control, that you're strong in, and your brain will reward you by giving you this range of motion for good. This little routine you can do 2 to 3 times a week, and you'll definitely want to repeat this for at least 4 weeks because it's not just doing one exercise one time and feeling some kind of temporary improvement. It's teaching your body and training your body and forcing your tissues to adapt and your brain to lay down new movement patterns that will give you these results that persist. So do it 2 to 3 times a week for 4 weeks, and that's when you're going to get the best results. To quickly summarize the exercises, we started off with the posterior hip capsule mobilization. Do that in 3 different positions of the hip for 5 circles in one direction and 5 circles in the other direction. Follow that up with the hip flexion ERE, 3 to 5 cycles, holding those activations for 10 to 15 seconds each, and then finish off with the reverse lunge from a step or the single leg squat for 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions. That's all she wrote today. If you like that, hit us up with a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and check out a couple of other videos. We've got a video looking at the tight psoas. We've got a video using our approach for a tight piriformis. And if you've got any hip pain, check out the hip pain solution. If you've got pain in the hip, in the front, in the back, in the side, check that program out, and we'll walk you through our approach to get rid of that pain for good. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Peace.